First name is...
Unless it's on here.
Carlina.
Okay.
Kalamp. Last name is N as in Nancy, IHEU. I'm with...
Kalama?
Yeah, Kalama, yeah. I'm with the Justice for Kollin Elderts Bill coordinator. And John, were you going to say something?
There's no need for me to say that.
Okay.
Just coming down to be supportive.
Whenever you guys are...
Call the mic, can you do it like I'm back there again?
Yeah, you could talk to us.
Okay.
Like not in front of, not to the camera.
You want me to talk like
No, yeah, it's better to just.
You're
Okay.
like all scary and intense? Okay.
Yeah, whenever you're ready.
All right. Hi, my name is Kalama Nihil, Dr. Kalama Nihil. I'm here as a coordinator for the Justice for Kollin Elderts Coalition. The family is unable to make it today, but they would like to share their statement regarding this particular bill that Representative Ing had the generosity and courage and helped introduce on behalf of the family. Statement from Kendall and Janelle Elderts, the parents of Kollin Elderts. On November 5th, 2011, our son, brother, and friend, Kollin Elderts, was cruelly ripped away from us by a federal agent by the name of Christopher Dede. Despite knowing that he was going to drink and go bar hopping, he still made the decision to carry a loaded firearm. Tragically, Kollin paid the ultimate price. What few people understand is that 2 other bullets went wild in that crowded McDonald's. It could have been anyone's daughter, anyone's son. While this law won't affect federal agents, we're hoping that it will save another person's life in the future. That Kollin's legacy will be to shine a light on a frightening aspect of law enforcement culture. That officers often get away with crimes that other people would usually spend the rest of their lives paying for. We need to send a message that they cannot come into our communities and kill our children without being accountable for what they've done. Mahalo.
Studies clearly show that alcohol consumption impairs our better judgment and our inhibitions to express violence. And this is reflected in our motor vehicle laws. You can't drive while intoxicated. But just the same amount of cars are in the US, 250 million, there's that many guns. Yet the intersection between firearms and intoxication has received almost zero focus from legislatures, including Hawaii. As a matter of fact, motor vehicle collisions are the #1 cause of injury-related deaths in the U.S., and firearms are #2 at 40,000 deaths and 30,000 deaths, respectively. This law isn't trying to take away guns from anybody, just like DUI laws aren't trying to take away cars, unless you're driving recklessly while intoxicated. This is a common sense bill that will save lives. While no legislation can heal the pain that the Elderts family has endured, we need to take action to prevent similar tragedies from happening in the future. And no matter where you stand on the Dede trial, we can all recognize the dangers of carrying a firearm while intoxicated. This is a common sense bill that will save lives.
Representatives, would you like to say anything, or do you want us to ask you a question? Would that make it easier?
We're just here in support, I think, generally for a concept. The bills are going to move forward in the coming weeks. We want to make sure that the public can hear from everybody and understand that this is an important issue, that it has a resolution, and there are easy steps we can take to make sure something like this never happens again.
And I was going to ask one of you, we were talking about this, how Hawaii's law right now currently compares to other states regarding alcohol consumption and law enforcement officers with the possession of a weapon. Why do you think Hawaii's law is where it is right now? Why isn't it more strict regarding alcohol consumption?
Well, unfortunately, a lot of these bills change once a tragedy occurs. And unfortunately, we've seen a tragedy in our state. Convention that's really common sense about prohibiting the of concealed or otherwise firearms while intoxicated if you're a law enforcement officer. And it's for the protection not just of the public, but for the law enforcement officers themselves.
Has there been any documented cases of a state officer or a county officer, since this law won't pertain to federal agents, has there been any documented incidents of any local police or state agents that have fired a weapon while impaired or drinking?
The issue of documentation of what shots are fired and how many deaths that are carried out by police officers, the reporting has been a problem, not just in Hawaii, but nationwide. Fortunately, we can preclude that from happening with this law, and we don't have to wait for another tragedy to occur to pass something that will save lives.
Why do you think that is? The lack of, you were saying that it's hard to find those numbers.
In any organization, including the House, including the police department, there's a tendency to protect your own. But when our interest and our purpose is to protect the broader public as well, sometimes these things intersect, and it takes a lot of public pressure and movement and action by the legislature in order to change that.
So right now, there's actually a federal inquiry going on right now about investigating why and how many instances are occurring where police officers are involved in questionable cases, including situations like Ferguson, Eric Garner in New York, and a variety, like countless others. So far to date, there's 100 people that have been killed by police officers nationwide. So this is not, and the statistics are very, very frightening. The initial statistics that they're collecting are actually incredibly frightening. And as we've seen recently, and the news following the Kollin Elderts trial, there's been quite a few instances of concern around HPD police officer activity around the instance of the domestic violence that wasn't reported. Also the instance of where officers came into, I guess, a computer room where they harassed and attacked the people that were in there. And the question was, why weren't these properly investigated? So really what we're looking at is not just a single instance, although this is a very common sense law. It makes a lot of sense. We're talking about a culture in which they really need to be accountable to looking at the fact that, you know, they're coming into our communities and we're not war zones, we're not enemies, we're not the people that they should be attacking, and there should be some basic rights and basic human consideration being paid for every one of us.
The language in the bill doesn't address any of that, right?
We're trying to keep it very simple.
I gotcha. Can I go back to actually in the bill, though, you're talking about, we're mentioning the Kollin Elderts case, but again, this bill would not have any impact on any future similar circumstances with a federal agent in Hawaii. Is that correct? Jurisdiction will only be on state.
It's targeting state and city
officers and county officers, correct?
Yeah, nothing the state can do will trump any federal laws. But again, we've seen this happen with a law enforcement officer or anyone who's intoxicated carrying a firearm could carry out such a tragedy. And we want to prevent that to the best of our ability in the state. To me, the issue is very personal because Kollin was my age. He was 23 when he got shot. I was 23 at that time. We're of similar social and ethnic backgrounds, and it could have very well been me.
What's the current law regarding HPD and the possession of firearms for off-duty police officers regarding the consumption of alcohol? What are they allowed right now? Have you talked to HPD? What have they said?
They're saying that there's currently a rule against being intoxicated while carrying a firearm. Now,
For off and on duty?
While on duty. But this is a rule that can be enforced internally, but not necessarily in the courts. And we want to give the same level of scrutiny to a police officer as we would any gun holder in place.
What's next for the bill? Is there a companion bill in the Senate?
There's not a companion bill in the Senate as far as I'm aware of, but it is expected to be heard by judiciary currently. But it's a single referral, which means that there's some time, so they're focusing on all the other bills that they have.
Does your House bill, does it have a hearing scheduled anytime soon? And do you know what committee that would first up?
It's only referred to judiciary, and it's a single referral bill, which means there's a couple weeks left, so they're trying to take care of the double referral bill this week.
And to your knowledge,
but not yet scheduled for hearing. Is that what you said?
It usually gets scheduled around 72 to 48 hours before the hearing itself.
It's like any
No, it's okay. And to your knowledge, is this the first time this kind of bill has been proposed in the state legislature in recent years?
Since I've begun my tenure in the legislature in 2012, it's the first time I've seen this type of bill.
Anyone else, whether this type of bill has been introduced before?
Not on the law enforcement side. The only, just thinking back, this is a number of years ago, but the only other thing that came up was a question of broader applicability and whether or not a common sense law like this ought to apply to everybody so that your average person wouldn't end up in the same situation, intoxicated and potentially killing someone unintentionally.
Thank you.